The sky was black and was getting dark. The fog came and messed up the tracks on the main line. James the Red Engine is returning home after his long journey to Croven's Gate. He was tired and he needed a long rest. It was a long mainline track to get home. James was enjoying himself. The fog hits the tracks and the lamp on him so he would see things at the night. James paused for a moment and remembered what Edwin knew. He knew it. He told him about the fog tonight when he was out to leave the Titma shed, but James didn't care and just left for his goods. James knew that he had to be careful on the fog in front of him. As he continued his journey, his wheels ran over something. But James didn't realize that he swerved to the left, but then that he didn't see the sign saying Roof's Castle. James rolled down to Roof's Castle station, where one had been at Kronk Station. You see some trucks and the coaches all around the station. No one came from his mouth. He stopped and wondered what paused. Suddenly, there was a cough that sounded before. The answer from James was the roar and race sight towards the tracks itself. Then, as James was about to move, he froze. What he had to see a flashlight. Couldn't it be real? There, right in the fog, was in front of it, was a faded-look scrap diesel. It was faceless and covered in rust. But suddenly, something big roared towards the track again. James was shocked and sees two diesels in the night. And that's what hit him. They were eyes peering out of the remaining of one of the diesels. James jumped as his face is of a pair of diesels, where one had been, and before it was rolling towards James. Its eyes narrowed, puffed wisely, shouted James, and he raced away from the station, as one of Diesel's friends has vanished into the mist. Later, when it was dark, when Thomas just finished his training for the day and back down to the shed with Edward, he felt nervous. Seeing him was so quiet and wanted to go to sleep. Thomas asked when he backed down in the shed. Just then, as the red engine puffed quickly towards the turntable, James had ran out of breath. Edward and Thomas were surprised to see him ran out of his breath. They had never seen James like this before, as they wanted to be quick. James said nothing and puffed slowly to the turntable, without Edward's words. James backed down in the shed and closed his eyes for a sec. James looked at the shed. The voice known as Percy. He was silent as made his friends confused. Percy asked. The engines thought Percy knows something about the two diesels from the future. It seems they had forgotten some, except for Thomas, but he didn't believe Percy's ghost story. But it's not for the mood of Percy about Diesel's story, asked Thomas disturbing. Everyone at the sheds were desperately disturbed by Percy's story, except for Thomas. Thomas just grumbled. Thomas said crossly before he backed down in the shed. Thomas was in the mood to listen to Percy's story. He closed his eyes and drifted to sleep. The next day of work, the engines reacted to Percy's story and how 2 diesels were scrapped. But Thomas didn't care and left Titmuss Station. He was on his branch line still talking about Percy's death of 2 diesel story, but he didn't mention it and just continued working. Later that evening, Thomas backed down to the sheds next to Henry and Gordon. Henry looked pale. Thomas asked, just as the workmen arrived. And so, the workman had left Thomas when he was steamed up. Thomas said, when he already left the sheds, Henry was still worrying what was going to happen to Thomas. But he said it was just only pretend ghostly diesels. It was never crossed Henry's mind of his change. Maybe Thomas will tell the truth. The fog had gone thicker and hits the trucks on the ground. Thomas was carrying the train to the smelter's yard. He was alone in the dark along with his crew tonight, said Thomas crossly. As he came to the stop at the station, his crew could see the lights from the windows. Maybe someone might help to get the gates open. His crew left to find the workmen, and the workmen that helped to get the gates open. Thomas was all alone, but not for long. A large diesel went roaring past him. Thomas has never seen an unusual diesel before. Just then, Thomas's crew returned and climbed onto his cab. Said the driver, and they headed to the ironworks. The air looked heated, and the smoke glowing thicker, and the shadows grew dancing in the air. Thomas rolled inside to the smelters, looking for his train to park somewhere else, until he heard a bang commotion from the door. It was closed. Now Thomas was stuck inside. He didn't know what to do. Thomas said. His crew went to find a woman. Thomas was all alone now. He had no way out. Just standing there waiting for his crew to return. Thomas was thinking so hard he was interrupted by an engine sound. Thomas looked around severely his surroundings, but he couldn't see anyone. Thomas was confused. He had made a wish of the steam. Thomas questioned, but there was no one there. But all he could do is just do nothing. Just as the calling out all of a sudden, he hit an engine again. Thomas could out of a diesel engine in the red air. Suddenly, the light had figured, and just when the edge away for Thomas's buffers,